Okay.
I'd really just like redo it. I don't like how I do one at the beginning. I want it like a little more like.
I mean, between one of those 3 or 4. It's a little flat, but I'm not worried about the tuning as much as the.
It's more of the punch. I want it to be like what? Like more with a punch to it.
The other thing I was gonna say is right now, these vocals are raw. There's no compression, so like having a little bit of that compression really brings out the attack with the vocals and stuff too. So it'll dramatically change the way you're hearing it. I mean, based off of what I heard, I thought it was good, but
if you think it's good, then it's fine. It's one of those things where I've been thinking about it like all day.
Here's what we're gonna do. We'll set up the mic regardless, and I'll run with what we got as far as this goes. We'll track the screams you want to add in.
Yeah.
And if after it's processed you feel like it needs to be redone, like the mic will be set up and we just punch it in. And I'll have it all set up with the signal chain so we can get the tone right away. It's typically like the first note in a chorus, or like the chord progression, but the bass note. So
it's the chorus. The chorus determines the key of the song in general, or for each part.
Hold on, let me just make sure.
Oh, I know what you mean now. I'm an idiot. Never mind. I get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick to F sharp minor. So what we're gonna do is I'm essentially gonna, before we apply any of these tuning plugins, I'm going to just create a stereo auxiliary input, and on that we're gonna put what's called Waves Rewire. And what that does is it essentially allows the Waves Tune plugin to move wherever you select within the plugin on Pro Tools as well. So I'm gonna go here, pitch shift, Waves Tune. We're gonna set this up to F sharp minor, natural minor, and I'm gonna put a couple of these across the board. Just copy it over to the rest of the vocal tracks we want to use. Now, vocal tuning is not like, it's not necessarily
auto-tune.
Well, so it's basically uses the algorithm of auto-tune. You guys know about auto-tune. Like it was basically like invented to detect seismic activity, and accidentally just became auto-tune. Now this guy is a millionaire. But basically, it uses the algorithm, the auto-tune algorithm, and it's going to read the notes. I play through the song. So as I'm playing through the song, I can actually focus in on each syllable and dial in how much percentage of auto-tune I want to kind of refrain from giving it that actual auto-tune effect, which is also something important to talk about because a lot of producers will throw on auto-tune just for the characteristic that it gives the vocals. It's almost like it gives it almost like an instrument-like characteristic. It adds a little bit of highs, and it's a good way to...
The T-Pain effect.
Right. But even without, sounding like it's so fixed on each note, it adds a little bit of this high end that helps blend with instrumentation. So there's a desire for a lot of producers to use autotune for that reason. But to do it the way we're doing, it will present that effect too, but we're going to talk about how we can take that away and still make the vocals sound natural. So that I'm a huge advocate for making sure the mix sounds raw and natural and capturing the artist's performance as it's intended. And so we got the Waves tune set up on all these vocal tracks. As I hit play, it's just detecting where the notes that he's saying were. And not to put you on the spot or anything, but basically the green is where he's saying, or the orange underlying the green is where he's saying, and the green right now is corrected just basically like a quarter of the way. So I'm just gonna let this run. I'm gonna let it basically read all the notes. So really nice melodies. Okay, I'm gonna turn this up a little bit. Why don't we start with? I'm the so right in the very beginning, you could see a little bit climb to that first note. So and bring this note transition up a little bit. We also don't want to jump so far where it's going a couple steps. So I'm going to bring that up so it's like a whole step going. You also want to look in your scale and make sure which notes are in the key and which notes are accidentals, and they get marked as these, like do not enter signs basically. But now that I've dragged this up, I can do a little note transition, and you'll see if I go all the way, you get that T-pain effect, which we don't want. So I'm gonna kind of ease it. So now the climb isn't so, ridiculous going into it. I'm the serpent of sin. I'm the serpent. I'm the serpent. And because you have that climb in the first, and when you come in, we could even experiment with not having a climb in the second one. So now that I bring that note up, I can just kind of reduce that as I'm the serpent of sin. I'm the serpent of sin. Again, this effect is a little more dramatic at the moment. Cool. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Almost. Hey, walk with me now. It's not a fifth. It's a fourth down, but it gives it this. The quality, as they call it, a perfect fourth or a perfect fifth, gives it like a nice droning effect, which in this case, I think works.
So
really
is this
well.
a separate vocal take that he did?
It's a separate vocal take.
It's a separate vocal take that he just turned down, like 4 semitones?
A fourth would be 5 semitones.
5 semitones?
Yeah, so here's where it was originally, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And parallel fourths, so the same exact melody, just down a fourth, and in this case that works really well. A lot of times, most times, going up a third works, but it also depends on the melody, where it's sitting in the key, and how it interacts. So there's a little bit of messing around with it, also understanding a little bit of harmony on a basic keyboard goes a long way with doing this stuff. So utilizing that to make sure things are musically correct with the vocals and how it blends with the music is just taking your production to a whole different level. So now that I have this one tuned, I'm basically using these tuning plugins to essentially set up for the Neve print that I'm going to do to make it sound like it's not tuned. Not just make it sound like it's not tuned, but just make the vocal sound 10 times better. And I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm going to temporarily throw an EQ on here. It could be a single band EQ. And what I'm looking for is a nasally frequency. It's different in everyone's voices, but specifically between 1K and 4K. I'm the serpent of sin, saving the fallen and lifting the weak. There we go. There's a sharp one at 1.6. There's another one at like 2.5, 2.6. What will you give? And another one at 4, right? So like, typically it's like pretty evenly spread between 1 and 4K. There's like some harshness in there that we don't want to bring out when we boost some of the highs and get out this characteristic with this beautiful U87 microphone, right? So here's what we're going to do. First thing, the EQ was just, I was running a little sweep to see where these frequencies are. But first thing I'm going to do is, we have 4 tracks set up with tune here, right? So I'm going to go ahead And just like when we did the reamp, I'm going to create 4 new mono tracks. And I'll color them light purple, so we know those are the Neve prints, right? And we'll do it so that it's track, print, just to keep everything organized. Output 7 is going into the input on the Neve shelfer, the top one. And then that's feeding back into input 5 on the back of the interface here. So at the moment, if you see here, this button is essentially enabling the preamp section, and if I press that, it bypasses it, and so we're not recoloring the sound with the preamp, we're just using the EQ and compression section. So let me feed this through and just hear what we're getting right now. Just a raw signal. But even just running through the circuitry of analog gear, there is a slight difference. It's a little quieter too, so right now the line level is controlled here. Right, so this is the really interesting part. So we're gonna start off by, we got the compression section here and we got the EQ section here. And if I turn on the compression section, then and select pre-EQ or post-EQ, like when the button is in pre-EQ, that means that that's first in the signal chain before the EQ. So then there's this button here, which is a side chain insert. So there's a send and return on the back of this compressor, just like an effects send and return on a guitar amp, right? So the send from this is actually feeding into this graphic equalizer down here, and the output of the equalizer is going back into the return, right? So now the idea is to essentially utilize those harsh frequencies we swept for earlier and find them on the graphic equalizer, right? And then essentially 1 to 4, which we're gonna just crank at the moment. And so as the compressor is sidechaining to the graphic equalizer, it's acting harder. The compression is acting harder on those frequencies specifically. And so what this does, this is a beautiful thing, is this is essentially how you set up a de-esser, right? I'm the serpent of sin. It's a very different characteristic of the compressor. Life will truly begin. It's actually like taking out some of that harsh nasaliness that auto-tune algorithm adds to the vocals, which is really nice and pleasing. Works really nicely in a mix. So I'm the serpent of sin. So I want to turn this to 100%. So we're hearing the full effect of the compressor. Life will truly begin. Harsher pulse often gain what you seek. What? So now what's really awesome is that these frequencies are specifically being compressed harder. When I turn on the EQ, it gives me more headroom to boost the highs, like 16K up here. And what that does is, now you're going to be boosting the good stuff that you want to hear out of your vocals, right? So let's turn on that EQ. Just flatten these out. But as we bring these highs up, saving the fallen and lifting the weak, life will truly begin. It really brings out like the nice characteristic. And that's what you're hearing right now in this stage is the beauty of working with a really nice microphone, like U87. It's not until you run these processes that you really start to hear the characteristics and why certain mics are favorable in certain situations. Then we have the silk mode here, which we could do red or blue. I personally like the red. It essentially adding exciting harmonic frequencies to what's there. It's a little bit of saturation, essentially. I'm the serpent of sin, saving the fallen and lifting the weak. So now, just listen to the vocals on their own. It sounds pretty good. I'm going to run a print and let's see how that fits into context. It's usually a pretty good way. So I'll set up all these vocal tracks with the tuning plugins on them in this way to I have the prints set up to start the mixing process for the vocals. Okay, so now that we got everything nice and organized and basically set up for the mixing portion of it, we could basically start focusing instrument by instrument, make sure everything sounds, ideal in the way we want it to in the mix. And if we need to change anything, we can go back. We have everything set up to feed into this side of the mix window, essentially. So, drums and bass, usually a good place to start. Turn it up a little bit. It's also a good point to, like, if you have to step away for a few minutes and just sit in on fresh ears, this is like the good spot, a good point to do that. Between guitar, bass and drums, we've set it up so it's like very well balanced and very clear between everything that's going on here. I got that sidechain running on the bass between the kick and the drums. Why don't we check out these these guitars for singing the fire. Side EQ these guitars a little bit. Just make sure we're not going too much of the harshness in the mids, not too much lows in the sides. Give a little more high energy to the sides. Let's check out cameras and drums. I actually like where Cameron's guitars are sitting spatially. I think Chip's guitars, the benefits are being wider against Cameron's guitars here. So I'm going to go back to that isotope. The idea is from this point on, everything's very light touches to get everything exactly where we need it.
So what did you just do with those guitars?
So we have a little bit of multiband compression after the cabs, focusing on taming the low end, so that the low end of the bass cuts through nicely. Then bus compression for the mix, and for this, We typically like almost completely fast attack, fast release. I have the ratio set to 3.5, and the threshold. The way I have everything feeding into this, the snare, it's a little bit louder. It's popping. So what we're going to do is we want to hit that snare to be hitting between negative 3 and 5 decibels of compression. And then the beautiful thing about this, the slate bus compressor is I can dial the mix back, and I have it pretty far back actually, like just 38%. We're going to throw on the classic tape emulation. And this is also very simple. I like to flip this setting and then essentially drive it to the point where it's just touching the red. It's almost hard to hear the difference, but if I bypass these, kind of reinforces that cleanliness of the low end and stuff, prior to feeding it into a master. So, find yourself a nice S, and you can do an EQ sweep on that too. It's a neat little trick to find what frequency you want to de-ess.
Saving.
Okay, 8.8 is one.
Saving.
11 is another one. Let's start with those two. Cool, this is a good point to... We did compress, but add more compression, layers of compression. So, there's a classic vocal trick of LA2A 1175 combination, and I like, specifically with the plugins, at least doing the LA2A first. CLA2A, this is. And also turning this screw up to flat a little more towards flat.
I'm the serpent of sin.
And very light compression on the LA2A, feeding into the 1176 slate plugin. And again, very light compression on this as well.
I'm the serpent of sin, saving the fallen and lifting the weak. Life will truly begin.
It's bringing out a lot of detail in the vocals. So there's certain words on here now, like life.
Life will truly begin.
That we could still replace, so I'm going to go to a different take there and grab that. So I have a couple impulse responses I like to load in for a reverb. I have bass from the Lexicon 480.
Serpent of sin, saving the fallen and lifting the weak. Life will truly begin. Merciful often get what you seek. What will you get? What will you serpent of sin, saving the fallen, lifting the weak. Life will truly begin. Merciful often get what you seek. What will you get?
I like this one. It's a little intense right now, but you turn up the pre-delay, add a little chorus and a little width. Turn down the lows a bit. And then just kind of bring that back.
Serpent of sin, saving the fallen and lifting the weak. Life will truly begin. Merciful often get.
Also, at any point, we have the ability to just automate these effects now too. So
Serpent of sin, saving the fallen and lifting the weak. Life will truly begin. Merciful often get what you seek. Merciful often get what you seek. Hey, walk with me now. 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 Hey, walk with me now.
Let me actually turn down some of the highs, repeating after that.
Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Hey.
Now the other really important or like cool thing to do with this is I'm gonna do another send from the chorus vocal bus I have here, and that's gonna go into. I'm gonna sidechain this effect to the main vocal so that these effects aren't getting in the way of the vocals themselves.
Hey, walk with me now. Hey.
So you can actually like squash these like pretty heavy.
Hey, walk with me now. Hey.
Obviously you don't want it to pop out so much when they stop, but
Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk.
increase that release a little bit.
Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now.
It's a really cool effect for the chorus.
Hey, walk with me. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me now. Hey, walk with me
Um,
What will you get? What will you offer to me?
Oh, fuck yeah, man.
it's
That sounds fucking awesome.